Welcome back in, everyone, to NRL Fantasy Analysis. We're going to be going through my team in this one and also the alternates. So let's see how we went. We had a round rank of 6,861 last week for 954 points, which sits us at 7,405. So after being 12,000 in the first round, we had a bit of an improvement, which was good. And I think we're really well set up to perform well over the next few weeks. I've got 150k in the bank. My main issue is if Cleary doesn't play, because if he's actually out for this week, then that makes it a bit sad. But 150k in the bank, there's enough space to upgrade in some spots, and we'll talk about the team makeup. Obviously, I traded out Cook, which helped me out with bringing in another good edge player, and also freeing up some cash and getting a nice cash cow in Leniu. So we'll talk through that now. But Jaden Brayley up the top, amazing work so far. I've had a few people that are talking about captaining him this week if Cleary doesn't play, and I think that might be a mistake. Yes, he's had 2 amazing weeks, but I don't know if he's as consistent as some of the others would be. There's a chance he gets somewhere in the 40s this week, whereas I think someone like Fafita or Crichton or these types of players, or Tedesco even, could be some safer plays there. But amazing work for Brayley, and had him from the start, which was great, and we'll keep seeing some price rises and some great scores there. Welch for 55, so that's going to begin his cash making process after a 46 in that first game, which was still good, but for him to average just over 50, 50 and a half, I think was really great. It's exactly what I thought he would average this year, and to start with two good scores like that is perfect for him. And we've got Watson in there, and he's doing great as a starting mid there with 2 scores in the 50s. And again, not expecting him to average somewhere in the 50s, but somewhere in the 40s would be great. And he'll make plenty of cash going forward. If he can keep that up, he'll be somewhere in the high 500s to 600s very quickly. So if you don't have him in your side, you're missing out. And he's got the dual position as well, which is great. Not that many of us need any extra hookers in our squad. But Tino, being one of our main issues at the moment, obviously did okay in the first game and got a 41, but to get 25 in this second round was not great. We obviously spoken about him a little bit already, but 22 in the first half, and then down to only 3 points in the second half was not great. But had a good footy game, but just didn't translate to the fantasy scores, unfortunately. I'm liking him this week as to someone like Josh Hodgson who plays really well but doesn't always score well. So that was really interesting, because when he played with the Storm, he was someone that did play, did score really well in fantasy too, and maybe we could put that towards the Titans not being as well structured in defense, and Tino's trying to get out there and make that big hit, because the few times he comes out of the line and throws an arm out, or has a decent hit but bumps off, and they credit that as a negative too, even though it was probably a decent play in actual footy terms. So with him, I'm not expecting him to score as bad as 25. I think that'll probably be his low of the year. There's a chance that he can have a big score this week in a 60 or 70, but there's also a chance he sits around that 40 mark as a sort of a norm. So for me, there's a chance that I could trade him this week and upgrade. So if I'm getting rid of him, it's straight to a keeper. And my thoughts are someone like Fogarty, I could trade him straight too. If I decided to downgrade somewhere else, I could bring in like a Tohu Harris or something like that. So if Schuster plays, for example, I could downgrade someone to him, but and go up to a gun. And that's the only way I'd play Tino. Otherwise you just keep him, because yes, he's losing a little bit of cash, but there's a chance that he goes boom this week and scores really well. So just keep that in mind with him. Jordan Ricky came back and had an amazing week. So we can expect somewhere in the middle. 23 in the first game, 70 in this game. I'd expect somewhere in the 40s, which would be great. But he did play 80 again, and without any injuries this week in the squad. So looked for him to continue playing 80 and scoring fairly well. Had Fafita in there, brought him in this week, and he scored a double. Didn't have to do too much in defence, and came off a little bit early with a bit of an issue there, which he'll be fine going into next week. But just had that HIA and came back on to get a couple extra points with a couple of minutes to go. But moving down, we've got Lamb and Cleary. So Cleary perfect with the captaincy again. Just ticked over the 1 million mark, which was great. Lockie Lamb with 35. So he's not someone that's losing any cash at the moment, but we were hoping that he would score somewhere in the 40s and do well for us. And his baseline is going to be around this 32, 35 mark. And if he can get some more attacking stats or get his hands on the ball a bit more, he can score a bit more. But to me, I don't think he's going to serve his purpose as a cash cow, unfortunately. So he's someone that if Cleary's playing this week, then you could look to probably trade him. If someone like Schuster's on your radar, if he does get a start in the second row, or however that happens to come about, then I think you could possibly trade him down to a Schuster and use him as a cash cow, with Lamb not being possibly one of those. But the other thing to think about is if you have like an Averillo on the bench and you had him as sort of like your half cover, I wouldn't be relying on him to do that scoring work for you. Obviously, you got Lockie Croker as well, like I do, and I know a lot of other players do as well. You could use him as that cover, but I wouldn't be relying on him as well. So you'd probably want to use him as maybe your third, like as your actual cover, so you can have him on the bench, and you can decide whether you want to have him as an interchange player or on the emergencies if you've got a complete squad and no one injured. So something to think about with him. He's not losing you money, and he's a safe option in there in a Roosters side where he could go have a really big game if Keary happens to go down with injury, or they decide to use Lamb a little bit more, then he could do well. But that's where I'm at with him at the moment. He's kind of just like a placeholder until we can find something better to spend his money on. But in the centres, really happy with where I'm at. So I've got Opacek, and I did want Momorowski at the start of the year, but Opacek was a great second option and hasn't had any attacking stats yet for a 32 and a 35, which is awesome. Really happy with that from him, and he's made sort of 30k already, and should be able to make a bit more, especially if he gets some attacking stats. So the Para playing pretty well at the moment. So him with Sivo playing really well on his outside, they might get a little bit of catch and pass going, and maybe they're looking for Sivo to get the ball a little bit, and then Opacek get a try also. But really happy with him, and Tessie knew as well. I called him to score a try this week and play him over Averillo. So if you listen to that, then great. But they're playing the Bulldogs this week, so there's a chance that he goes fairly well again if he gets the start. So he should do, but there's every chance the Broncos just start shake up the team like they did a bunch of times last year. I've heard Oates and Dearden a chance of playing this week, so whatever that means for someone like Tessie, I'm not sure, but it might be Oates coming in the back row there. But we moved along to our wing fullbacks, so Pappy, Laurie, and Sheck. So perfect. Pappy and Laurie, definitely going really well, and you could say that there's a chance that Laurie becomes a keeper and makes a shitload of money. So if that's the case, then if you don't have him, please get him in now. He's still at 325k, and you've got enough time to bring him in to do well. But he looks really strong in that fullback position and should do well for anyone's team. And I'm having him as a starting fullback. I'm really happy with that position. Two of us are Sheck. He's lost about 30k and averaging just under 40 if I'm correct, so 38.5. And when you've got someone who is a keeper and always is each year, this is kind of the some of the lower price you'll get him. He might if he has another bad game, he might go down to 560 or 570, but he's not someone that you're going to keep down for long. And he had a slightly below the year last year just because he had limited attacking stats, but he was right in on the play on the weekend, got a couple of try assists, just hasn't had the tackle bust yet. And when he has that kind of game and does really well, then he's going to score really well for our sides. But to get 44 without doing too much, we're really happy with, and I'm not stressed. I know a few people are trying to trade him out for trading him for Latrell or whatever, but Latrell plays another good team this week and might not do as well. But we then come to the interchange and emergencies, and I'm actually really happy with where it's at the moment. We've obviously got Crichton, who's going to come back into the starting side, and that that might be if I go a Tino to a Fogarty, then he can come in here. Lamb goes to the bench. Crichton moves into that starting mid, which makes everything look a lot stronger, doesn't it? I think, but obviously we want Cleary to be playing. But Jacob Little at 58 with a try is great. Turpin, I'm not stressed about. I think that's going to be one of his lowest scores of the year in his 80-minute performances. Alvaro's awesome. I'm glad I had him from the start with 54 actually playing, which is great. And then I brought in Spence, and he only got the 29 minutes. So I think that's going to be one of his lower minute games of the season. Someone like Kickout played a bunch of extra minutes on the weekend. They do have a fair few minutes to go around, but for him, I'd expect him to get some bigger minutes in different types of games. Maybe not in the big games, like they might play the other guys a bit more, but then the next game, if they're doing pretty well, then they might hold him on there for a bit longer because you can see the week before he played the 40, so I wouldn't be stressed with that. Averillo is just too cheap to worry about trading out at this stage. He's got the half and the centre cover, so if you need if Tessie goes down or Opacek gets dropped, then you can just drop him in there for a week and you'll survive. So I'd be keeping him. I don't know why people would be trading him out. There's other issues in your side that you can trade down to a Schuster or something like that. Lockie Coker is just going to start his money-making potential, which is great with a 52, and then Stefano got more minutes like we were hoping for and got closer to a 1 point per minute. So really happy with how those guys went. And as I said, I feel like it's looking pretty good. If I could trade like a Tino to a Fogarty or downgrade Lamb to a Schuster, upgrade Tino to like Tohu Harris or something, I think the team's looking really strong, and I've got some money makers on the bench, and I don't think we're very worried at all, even ranked 7,400. I feel like, especially if Cleary can play this week, but I'd expect a pretty big week of scoring and bringing my rank down to sort of 4,000 or less and going from there. So, I'm not too stressed, making a bunch of trades at the start, because if I can set up the team pretty well with some money makers and some keepers in here, I feel like I can hold off on a bunch of trades at, between rounds 4, 5, 6 once everything's been established, kind of thing. But okay, and we'll move on to the alternates team now. So here we are, and it's a bit of a tough week for these guys with not having someone like Cleary, which this was kind of the reason for it, and going a little bit different with it. But having McCulloch as captain, missing out on the try assist hurt, negative 14 for the squad, but end up with 919 and a pretty tough rank for round 2, which sits us at 9387 across the 2 weeks. And you can see like there's some really good parts to it, but trading in someone like Davey, not having the huge captain, but and Brooks not going as well this week, and missing out on one of the high ones there, but some good areas in there which we'll go through. But McCulloch with 53, it was one of his lower games, just didn't have to tackle as much, but got a couple of kicks out of dummy half and just missed out on a try assist that he should have got. So kind of like a normal score for him. I was tempted between McCulloch or Fafita and thought McCulloch could be a bit safer, and Fafita went the double, 2 tries anyway. But in the mids we got Watson, Twal, and Linu. Twal's a bit annoying. He's only getting 50 minutes on the weekend, which you would have hoped that he'd get a bunch more. But had to start with Spence and didn't have anyone like Alvaro on the bench, which was annoying because I decided to go real cheap and spend all my money possible and went a cheap guy in Walker on the bench. But brought Davey in instead of someone like Alvaro, which was annoying and cost us sort of 44 points there, for example, which puts us in the 960s, and I'd be sitting around a 3,000 or 4,000 rank. So just one player like that can be annoying. But we spoke about all these guys, and before Brooks 42 had a really slow start, then went absolutely bonkers for a bit, and then kind of a slow finish to the end. But obviously against the Roosters team that smashed him, I wouldn't be too stressed about that. And he's got an average of 53, I think, over the first 2 games, so he's doing great. Momorowski and Tessie New, so really good centre pairing and also a perfect wing fullback pairing. So nothing to worry about with those guys there. And we moved to the bench and very similar setup. We got Brayley, Little, Turpin, which is great, and then Davey, who's going to have to be traded out. Unfortunately, doing his ACL, but Crichton can come straight back into this side, and we'll work out what we do with Davey. If Schuster becomes available, then we trade him straight in, and we'll look at what cash we got left available. So 38k available. If we bring in a Schuster, then that would give us around 40 to 50k plus the 38, so around 70 to 80k to possibly upgrade elsewhere if we wanted to. But I guess who do we think we need to upgrade in this squad? There's not too much at this stage, so maybe it's just a fact of trading down to Schuster if he becomes available, bringing Crichton back into the team, and probably going to be captaining him with a chance of going big in a pretty important game for them on the weekend against the Bunnies, I believe. So there you go, guys. That's the team, and I just wanted to make this team just so it shows you, you make a bunch of different trades, and then the teams don't perform too dissimilarly. Like overall, like week to week, they're going to be fairly different, but overall they come back to a similar stage. So when you're starting that original first team, then don't stress too much about I picked this player over this player, because they all end up the averages come back to the mean there, and sort out what they need to do. So there you go, guys. That's the 2 teams. That's where they're at currently. Not a perfect start that I would have wanted, but it's all about the grind and getting back into that and making good decisions from here. Obviously I spoke about in that mid-range video, it's about making sure that the trades count. You're bringing in a cash cow or you're bringing in a keeper, and that makes your team look a lot better. You don't have a bunch of guys in that mid-range, you're like, they had a good week or 2 and then they had a bunch of average ones and you're thinking about trading them out. A lot of the guys that I've spoken about with you, they have one bad week and you want to get rid of them. So the keepers you don't stress about as too much with that. But there you go, guys. That's the video for today. Hope you enjoyed that, and let me know what kind of trades you're making this week. We'll jump in and do a Q&A video, and if you like this, please hit that button. I really appreciate it, and hit subscribe if you're new here. But hope you have fun, guys. See you later.